had a friend recently call me and ask about whether or not she should separate her businesses between this new business she was about to buy and her existing business. She was kind of curious if they should all be under one umbrella or if she should keep the businesses separate or what she should do. And I thought it was a really interesting question because it made my brain start to think like, well, why would you separate a business and why would you maybe combine a business? And what are some things that you need to consider if you're trying to decide? For me, I'm going through a personal business question myself because I have almost two separate sides of my business. And so what this is leading me to think is that I actually will be separating out my business. And that's a little bit more, I'm giving some teasers about it, but we're actually going to be starting a new business and separating off parts of the business into a new entity. And so I'm thinking that if my friend had this problem, I'm kind of having this question. I get this question from clients sometimes. Maybe some other people also have this question. When should we separate businesses, or when does it make sense to just have it all combined under one business umbrella? So if that sounds interesting, I'd love for you to stay. I want this to be somewhat, I know that this is a very one-sided, I'm talking to you, I'm talking into the camera, you are watching a video right now, but I would love to hear your thoughts too, because if you've ever been thinking about this and noodling on, should I have a separate business or should I have the same business for these different ideas, I would love to hear your experiences below. So please feel free to put comments in the comment section. I would love to read those because this is really just a musings. I'm thinking about this. I'm kind of thinking about it for myself when I would maybe separate a business versus maybe when I would advise someone to keep them under the same roof. So if that sounds good, please stay tuned. Please be a part of this conversation. And if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, I'd love to have you here as a subscriber and we can think about what is best for the future of our businesses here on this channel. Okay, so a couple things that I was thinking about is one that I think is very important that you would want to split businesses for is if you are thinking about having different ownership structures for different parts of your business. So I did have a client one time who was operating a business and then they had a new idea and they were thinking that this new idea would really warrant bringing in some investors. Like it was very related to the business that they had, but this new idea was something that they needed to get other investors for. They had interested parties. They were going to start raising money for this new idea. So in that situation, it made 100% good sense to separate the businesses. You really wouldn't be able to bring on investors into a current business without giving them access to everything that's already existing. So it's a great time to start a new entity and be able to structure that really well so that the partners can actually buy in at a certain level and you can have that operating agreement set up. And it doesn't give new investors access to existing business assets that maybe had been built for years and years and years. So that when you are talking about different ownership structure, that's a really, really clear indicator that you're going to want to separate out your businesses. Now, a lot of this stuff comes with like new ideas. Business owners have new ideas all the time. So oftentimes things can just be a new revenue stream. So, I might be thinking, we offer CFO services right now in Claire CFO group. Like if I also wanted to start offering bookkeeping services, like that would be like an additional revenue stream, but it would be a really good complement to my services that I already have and be serving the same clients. So in that sense, like it really wouldn't make sense for it to be separated into a different business. But let's say that all of a sudden I am thinking, hey, we have all these CFO clients that need this service. And I'm also noticing that a lot of my clients need HR support. This HR support is something that I, think that we could do. If that was the case, we would need to decide, is that HR support something that could be just another revenue stream? Or is it something that we're wanting to do something different with? And is it something that we're going to bring on different partners for? Or is it going to potentially be marketed towards a different type of customer? If that's the case, we might want to separate it off. Now, if it's going to be just totally a service provided for our existing customer base, and we're going to continue going after the same types of customers, and our mission and vision and values are all the same, it might make a lot of sense to just roll that under the Claire CFO Group umbrella We're not going to do that, by the way. Just so you know, we're not doing bookkeeping and we're not doing HR support, but both of those might roll under the Clara CFO Group umbrella because all of the other factors are the same. So we would be, still the same ownership structure, and we would still be kind of targeting the same types of people. Our mission and vision values hasn't changed, and our, profit and loss would be looking really similar. So another reason you might separate businesses into two different entities is if you have a really different target market for your business. So let's say that you have a business and you are providing a service and you're spending your marketing dollars on that. And then you all of a sudden just have this other idea for this other thing, and you would like to start, seeking customers for this new idea. You really want to think about, is this really aligned with the same potential target audience, or is it a totally different target audience? And I'm going to give you a very silly example, but I think this is a good example at the same time. Let's say you own a landscaping company and you're out doing your landscaping, and every day you're out working in the hot sun and all your employees are, and you see a kid's lemonade stand and you say like, wow, that lemonade stand is so refreshing. I would love to have, maybe a food truck where I'm able to go around and offer refreshing beverages to people on hot days. Chances are that your target audience for your new beverage cart and your landscaping company are probably not aligned to be under the same entity type because they're not the same customer, and they're going to have lots of different things that are different about them. But you might get to a situation where maybe you offer landscape design or landscape services, and then you say, hey, I noticed that all of our landscaping clients are actually asking us if we also do design, and we don't do design. Maybe I can buy a landscape design company and we can combine ourselves under the same roof. That might be a really good time to actually combine the services, because who you're talking to and your marketing is going to be, in your target market for your business is really the same people. Okay. So if you have entrepreneurs are full of ideas. I love it. I love it. I love it. But sometimes they are very cohesive, and then sometimes they are completely different. And if it's completely different, you probably, and especially in the target market, you probably want to separate those businesses and those business ideas into two different ones. Okay. So another thing that can be a pretty triggering event to separate entities is if you really have a very different mission, vision, and values. So oftentimes business owners are going to have similar core values no matter what the business is. But if you have a really different mission and your long-term vision for the business is really different, then you might not want to combine the businesses. So let's say you own an accounting firm and you've owned it for years. You actually took it over from your parents. They ran it for a long time. You're running it now, and you want that to be a legacy for your kids, where you want that to be a place that your kids can come and work, and you want to go and you want that to have a long-lasting legacy, and you see it 20 years from now operating as an accounting firm. And then you have this idea for another business that maybe is adjacent to, maybe it's more of maybe it's a tax software where you can process tax returns a lot faster, and you think that actually has a different trajectory to where you might want to sell it to a larger company one day, but you want it to be very fast, and that might have a 2 to 5 year trajectory for exit. So very different long-term trajectories here. Really fast sale versus long-term legacy business, family owned and whatnot. That might make sense to actually separate those two. Now this tax software idea might be something that also would be taking on owners in the future or investors. So it would make sense to have that as a separate entity, but also just think about where is the direction that the business is going? Can they be aligned or can they not be aligned? That's a good thing to ask yourself. Kind of on the idea of the target market is if you have two ideas that have very, very, very different competitive strategies. So again, let's go back to a service-based business. Let's say that you are a website design business and you design really high-end luxury websites, and you are, tip top of the market. You are going to charge the highest price. You're going to get the best customers. You are going after, you have this really high differentiation strategy that, allows you to charge really high premium premium fees. And then you have this idea to start something that's more of like a, churn and burn type website production where it's kind of cut and paste, like change the color scheme and just go, 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 go. And do that as fast as possible. You have a very low cost product and it's also just a low price point because of that. So it doesn't cost you a lot to do and then you can sell it for really cheap. Those are two separate competitive strategies that would not fit very well under one roof. So, and a lot of that would be from a customer perception. If you have those two things by each other's side, if it kind of could potentially devalue your very high-end service offering if you also have it right next to your very low-end service offering. And so I would recommend, thinking about your overall competitive strategy and does one poach the other, you might not want to have them side by side. Now, corporations do this all the time where they will own lots of different businesses within a segment that do have different competitive strategies, but it's kind of a way for them to own the entire market, as much of the market as they can. They might own the really luxury shops and they own the lower, more value players in the space. So, if you get big enough and you can do that, that's great. But they usually are not under the same brand name and they have very clear differentiation in that way. Okay. So another thing that I can think about that you might want to separate your two business ideas is if you have really different staffing needs. So if you have staff that is totally different than the staff that you might need for your new idea. So again, let's use a service-based business. Let's use the accounting company, for example. So if you have an accounting firm, you're going to have CPAs on your payroll. You're going to have bookkeepers, people like that. But if you have a tax software company, you might have some CPAs on your payroll, but you probably are going to have developers. You're going to have software developers on your payroll, more so than maybe the accountants. So it might not make sense for you to leverage the same staff. So it might make sense to have two separate businesses as well. That might be really different from, let's say, if my business ended up taking on bookkeeping and I have some CFO services. There's CFO services and bookkeeping services are not the same, but sometimes the CFO services need help from a bookkeeper. And so there could be some synergies there where the individual bookkeepers could also support the CFO clients in different ways. So that's different. The types of staff could be leveraged in multiple different ways by providing through those CFO services. And then one of the last things I want to mention to you guys, if you really think that the accounting chart of accounts would look really different between the two businesses, for you to look at the business information on the profit and loss and be able to operate and understand what's happening in the business, if it's really different between the two business ideas, you might want to consider separating the businesses as well. I've been in a situation where a owner had two pretty different businesses. They're both service-based businesses, but two pretty different businesses, and looked at them on classes in QuickBooks. So one was one class and one was another class. And so that you could see the two P&Ls. But what happens is then we look at the total P&L and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. You can't really tell where the profit is being derived from. And the chart of accounts are different enough that they don't jive super well together. So it's a little bit hard to look at the total and make a lot of sense of it. So in that situation, we've been kind of pushing for separating the companies because I think you'd get a lot more clarity by looking at the two companies totally separate altogether. And then you don't have maybe one business looking healthier than the other because one's kind of bolstering the results of the other. And also if you have a lot of shared services, that can start to get a little bit muddy as well. So I hope that this is helpful to you and sort of thinking about, does it make sense for you to separate out this business, or is it just a good new revenue stream that you can bring into your business? Is it just like a new way that you can serve customers, or is it a new way that you can add more revenue to your business by bringing in this new idea? Or does this really need to be a completely separate business? This is not giving you the answers. I don't know everything that's happening on your side of the screen, but I do want you to know that you can kind of think through these different aspects to say, does it make sense? Does this need to be a completely new business? And if it is, I'd love to hear in the comment section below if this brought anything to light for you, and also if there's any other reasons that you can think of that you would separate out of business versus just bringing it into your current one. All right. Well, I will talk to you guys later. I hope this has been helpful, and we will see you next time. Thanks for being here. Bye.